So, first of all, there is one book. The name of this book is, I wrote it here, On the Way to the Light. This book was written by Chico Xavier, but he was just the medium, just the intermediary. The real author of this book was his guide, his spiritual guide. And that's why he wrote this book, sold thousands, millions of copies, and never took 1 cent. He donated everything because he said he wasn't the author. He was just the instrument. So he donated everything. This medium lived in Brazil, and he wrote more than 400 books, even studying just up to the 4th grade. It's very impressive. It's a very impressive case of mediumship. He was studied by a lot of people, including AI, and now assessing his writings, and it's very impressive. But going back to our main history, in this book, On the Way to the Light, Emmanuel, his spiritual guide, tells us about our history of mankind. And he says that our lives and our story didn't start here. It started in another dimension, in another sphere, before we come here. We lived many, many lives. And we were in this other environment, and this environment was changing, facing a change. Going from a primitive world and moving forward to a regenerated world. And a lot of spirits that still here was part of this group. When they left this sphere to come here, Jesus had a conversation with them, saying that he would be the guide of them. And why they had to leave this other sphere? Because they evolved, but this group of spirits didn't keep up. So they would not have the opportunities and the experience that they need to continue their evolution. Because we are here now, evolving. Every experience we have, we learn something with this experience. But most of the time, we are very deaf and blind and stubborn. So the lessons keep coming, and we don't like to listen. We want to go on our own way. So this group of spirits had these characteristics, but they would not have anymore what they needed to keep their evolution going on. So they came here. And that was what is written on Genesis in the Bible, the lost paradise. This is a parable. This is can anyone help me with the right word here?
Verse.
Verse? No, it's an analogy of what really happens. So this group of spirit got here and started their evolution. And Jesus made them a promise that he would be the guide. Because Jesus is the governor of our sphere here. And first, so we're gonna focus now on the Jews' story, because on this book, Emmanuel tells us about all groups. It's very interesting, and I strongly recommend who wanna go deeper on that. But the Jews, they were trying to keep their faith, and they had a lot of truth with them, but they were very proud to really understand and to really live what they had to live. But they were trying their best. Most of us we were there, among them. So Jesus sent the first missionary to bring them the first revelation, which was Moses. So Moses set them free from the Egyptian slavery, and he led the Jews from Egypt to Israel. But there are 850 kilometers between these two places. A walking distance around 25 days. This group took 40 years. Why? Why that happened? Even being a small group wouldn't take that long. But why? So why it happened? So the spirits tell us that was because Moses was teaching them and trying to change their mindsets. They used to be slaves, and they had to break a lot of mindsets, a lot of mental chains. So Moses led them randomly around the desert in this nomad life. It was very tough. And during this time, Moses gave them the 10 Amendments, which is the God's law, but also gave them a lot of practical rules because they didn't know how to proceed in this environment. So imagine, they were there with their sheep and a lot of other animals, cutting the animals with the hands very dirty, and then someone calls, "Hey, Jacob, come on, let's have a dinner." And then Jacob go and start to have a dinner with their bare hands, all dirty. So Moses had to say, no, it's forbidden. You need to clean your hands before you have your food. And they started to assimilate all these rules. But as everything was about God, but a lot of these rules was about practical world. So you can't kill your brother. If you stole your brother, he will steal you back. So the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. So all these rules emerged. And they should assimilate and start to live everything. But as happens with us, it's very hard to put in practice the essence of these laws. So it's much easier to put us the practical ones, to change our behavior instead of changing our feelings, the way we feel, isn't it? So, for 1,200 years, that was the time between Moses and Jesus, they practiced, but focusing almost only on the practical rules. So they were very good on the practical rules, washing their hands, not eating pork, and a lot of other rules, but very badly. They were not that good on the real essence. Because one of the amendments is love God above everything, and the other as you love yourself. It's there, but they couldn't practice this one. So the second revelation was Jesus himself. So he came and started to redirect the Jews to the essence again. And he said, forget about these external rules. Doesn't matter if you lose track of the real essence of the law. So that's why once he turned to the rulers of the Jews at the time and said, doesn't matter what enters in our mouth, because it goes to our stomach and then is it expelled from our body. What really matters is what came out of our mouth. because this came from the heart. So he was bringing our attention back to the essence. This was the context that Jesus appeared. And one thing very, very important. So the Jews faced all of this trouble to leave Egypt and arrive in the promised land, or Israel. And then the Romans came and started to impose a lot of other rules, almost like a slavery. Not exactly a slavery, but very high tax and rules above their own rules. And so they were, oh my God, all again? So their expectation was from a Messiah. But in their heads, this Messiah should be a prince, a warrior, that would set them free again from the Romans. They were expecting that. And then they had Jesus. So it was a very big disappointment for them. Because this, the carpenter, can't be. We are waiting for a warrior. Actually, some small groups inside the Jews were practicing like soldiers to be this army when the prince arrives. Yeah, the zealots. But they got Jesus. So a tremendous disappointment for most of them. And the very spiritualized beings normally disappoint us. Why? Because we are focusing always on the external things, on the material things. And these spirits know that this doesn't matter. So they cause this disappointment on us. And Jesus caused that in a very strong way. Well, so there is, if we stop to analyze, to assess Jesus' message, there is none about practical things or about the material, how to make more money or how to, solve this matter things. Actually, all of his teachings are in the opposite direction. He says, don't get concerned about what you're going to eat or about what you're going to dress. Your God knows what you need and will provide. So Jesus says everything about this inner world. All of his teachings are about this, because this is what matters, what really matters. There is one specific episode lived by Chico Xavier, this medium that we talked earlier. He was offended very badly. Despite of trying to do just the good to the others, he was offended. And then he got really sad. And he was sad, and his mentor showed up and asked, why are you so sad? Why are you so upset? And he said, he offended me, and I didn't do what he's saying. And Emmanuel said to him, so it's a reason to cheer up, because you are no longer the offender or the offensor. You are now the one who are receiving it. That's very good. He got disappointed. Of course, he was expecting another type of consolation, but that's how these spirits more close to God act. They are focusing on the right thing, on the inner thing, on our inner enlightenment. And then, when Jesus talks about his real kingdom, he's not talking about this external world. And most of us, till nowadays, are still waiting for this perfect world that our eyes can see. But he said, my kingdom is not of this world. He was talking about, again, our inner worlds. So if we want to see this world, if we want to see this kingdom, we need to look inside us. And that's the invitation that he was trying to say to Pilate, and Pilate couldn't get. So, if we stop to think, there was one time when Jesus was talking with a Samaritan, and at that time was almost like a Jew in nowadays talk with a Palestinian. So they are in war. So no talk, no friendship between these two people. And the Samaritans and the Jews at that time was almost like that. It was a very tough time. And Jesus, again, didn't care about it. He was too concerned to go to the right thing. So he approached the Samaritan and asked for water on the well when they were by the well. The Samaritan found very strange that conversation, that approach, and asked him, "You are a Jew, why are you talking to me?" And then Jesus said, "If you know who is the one talking to you, you would ask for water, and I would give you living water, and you will never feel thirsty again." He wasn't talking about the external water. He was talking about these teachings, love, after all. Because once that woman learned how to love, she would never need anything from outside again. She was in her 4th marriage, and she didn't feel loved back. She was thirsty. And Jesus said that to her. So everything that Jesus says is about this. So when on the gospel, he talks about the future life, which is the subject of our conversation tonight, he's not talking about a physical place that we're gonna go after this life. We are keep evolving. He is talking about this inner space that we can go now. We don't need to wait until we die to go to this place. We just need to focus on the right things and start to live this love now. And finally, there is one quote just before we end our conversation of the night, that Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are worried and burdened. I will give you rest." He says that at the same time that he disappointed a lot of other people, because the persons that he disappointed was those focusing on the external things. But for those that were already exhausted and couldn't find their happiness in the material things, he was offering delight. He was offering his hand and saying, "For you, I have something that will fulfill your heart truly." And that is the essence of his teachings. So now I would like to end our lecture of the night with this invitation to tonight, before we go to sleep, to reserve just a few minutes to think about our focus in this life. And maybe we can do a small adjustment and start to think about this inner challenge and this inner task that we are here to do. Because we are not incarnated here now to conquer the world. No, we already did. And we're still here struggling. And if this was the answer, the rich and famous people would never took their own lives. But that's not what we see. So, must have to be another way. And this is the invitation for us for the night. So, now that's all. I would like just to break the protocol here and ask if you have any question. Feel free.
Do you follow the Old Testament and the New Testament?
Oh, good question. There are passages of both, but most of them focus on the New Testament. You're welcome. And why Jesus, why we talked so much about Jesus in the Spiritism, it's not because Allan Kardec was Christian. Actually, was because he asked the spirits in one specific question, what is the most perfect type or model that we have or had in here? And the answers of the spirits was Jesus. Very straightforward. So they said Jesus, he personificates the love. So study his ways and you're gonna find your way. Right? So now I will invite you to close your eyes again. We're gonna end our lecture with a prayer. Anyone would like to do? All right, so let's focus our minds in Jesus. Let's imagine that we are in front of him on the same way when he was in front of the Samaritan, giving her all his love, not judging, as he is not judging us right now. Let's imagine his eyes, his look, looking deep on our souls, recognizing all our needs, and giving us a hug full of love. Involving us in all this love. And we now can feel all the peace in a very light heart. Dear Master Jesus, involve each and every one of us here tonight with your love and help us to find our paths, to live a little bit better and show and help us to show in every choice of our lives the love you give us. So